is an interesting start to the baseball season. It is an interesting start to April. A 7-12 White Sox team and a Chicago Cubs team that, while I may have thought was going to be pretty okay, 11-6. And I don't know what to feel or believe right now. And that's why I had to talk to my boys, Devin Tingle and Paul Chivari, here on the Sports Cubicle with all you wonderful people. And the marvelous one, Dan Marver, will be joining us throughout the entire show. But, Paulie, in all seriousness, I think it's been a really fun season for the Cubs. There's a lot of excitement. There's things, if you're a Cubs fan, to either put your hat on for this season or next season. But I want to concentrate on what's happening on 35th and Shields. Because if it's not an injury, it's bad base running or bad defense. It's a lot of the same. And while I blame Tony La Russa for a lot of things justifiably, now there's a lot of stuff about roster construction, makeup of player. I want to talk to guys who know not only this team, but the sport. So I want to throw it to you, Paulie. What's going on with the White Sox?
This doesn't seem like anything new to me. The roster construction and makeup of a player, the what was the Hawk Harrelson's TWTW, the will to win. You can't measure that. Not to say that these guys don't have the heart to win a ball game, but I think when you combine just kind of injuries, atmosphere, maybe, the scouting department kind of whiffed on the projections of where certain players were going to be in their career. Guys playing out of position, not really, Devin and I kind of were venting about this the other day, about how, the scouting is bad. They haven't developed a pitcher for a long time in that organization. The idea during the initial stages of the rebuild that they were going to rebuild the farm system, and then they never really built it up after they poached all those good players that are underperforming. And then missing on some big trades. We all know, even though Eric Johnson was the key piece in the trade, but James Shields for Fernando Tatis Jr. is always what that's going to be talked about. Gosh, help me out. There's got to be other terrible. Oh, and then tying yourself to bad contracts. Dallas Keuchel ultimately was not worth what they paid him. You could argue as Yasmani Grandal is not really worth what they're paying him. Although I think there is some value to him. I think catcher is just a hard position to truly find greatness out of for the price you're paying. And then the pitching, you wonder, they have a guy like Ethan Katz. It makes you wonder, was he really worthy to take a major league pitching coach job, just kind of based on some of his experience? And if so, why have certain guys regressed since he came around? So it's an overall thing. You can't really point to one thing. It was easy to point the finger at Tony La Russa, right? Really easy. He's old. The game has passed him by. This, that. Well, it's not like Tony was senile and didn't know the game of baseball. Any jerk can throw together a batting order, a pitching rotation, and know the availability of arms. Not everyone's going to be able to win with what they've got, and honestly, I don't think there's too many guys in the history of the game that could win with this roster, consistently. So, we got to be thankful for what 2021 was, but I think baseball is very fluid. It's a very ever-changing type of game. And I think you can't rest your laurels on 2020 and 2021. Ultimately, that was what the rebuild led to, was that. And then since then, they've had to make adjustments that they just haven't, and the fact that Elvis Andrews was their answer at second base. And that was after everyone kind of talked to him and realized they didn't want to sign him at shortstop, so was that always in the cards? Was that the game plan when you set like a 3-year plan back in 2020? Was that, we're going to get an aging veteran and make him play out of position? That, second base is such a hard position to build around too. And not to say Nick Madrigal was the answer, but then you talk about draft picks in which you had the 5th overall, 4th overall, and you get Nick Madrigal, who's barely struggling to get routine playing time in this league on a different team. So, that's various examples right there. And that only scratches the surface, because I think we could spend a whole 2 shows talking about why the White Sox are in a state of chaos right now.
Paul, you hear what Paulie is seeing. Dev, what do you see? What is your evaluation of why the White Sox team hasn't split a series with Houston, but hasn't won a series Like, this is a team that's struggling right now. Where are you? What do you see on the field? What's bugging you? What's positive, if you have any, for this White Sox team early on in the season?
Well, here's my positive. The White Sox, just about every game they've won this season has been by pure freaking luck. I almost swore it's how frustrating, but a lot of these games, like last Saturday, they walked in 2 runs and they won off a solo home run in extra innings. They should have lost that game. I'm sorry. Winning teams don't walk in runs here. And, the other day, Lucas Giolito had a friggin' no-hitter going in here. And, they throw in Aaron Bummer, is a guy who's not been very good. And of course, everyone's bitching and moaning about how we can't have the no-hitter. I just want this team to win games at this point. I don't care if the final score is 98 and the starting pitcher gave up 16 hits at this point here. They're already kind of doing that, except they're not getting the 9 runs out of there because this team cannot hit to save its damn life here. It's just getting pretty sad and pretty frustrating that this is the team that guys like me and Paul kind of just live and die by. And we just see more and more stupid decisions here. It's like Mike Clevenger had 2 really good starts, and he's now back to having an ERA over 5. This bullpen has an ERA over 8. The only team that is close to that is the Oakland A's with an ERA with an ERA of 7. I'm blanking on the exact number here. It's like, this is pathetic when a team that, like the Oakland A's, that are meant to be terrible are doing better than you in something. That is just freaking sad here. And it's coming to the point where it's like, I still blame Tony La Russa because, as Liam Hendriks said, he's like, once La Russa left and Miguel Cairo stepped in last year, it definitely was a different atmosphere. And I think maybe just should have given the job to Cairo, because I am not convinced with Pedro Grifol and his whole, I'm not concerned about the pitching. Oh, I'm not concerned about the bullpen. That's great. Because right now, the only way the White Sox are going to make the playoffs is if Dylan Cease starts 84 games. That's it. And I'm not seeing it with this. And that's just not going to happen. He's not Shohei Ohtani. And even that guy couldn't start that many games. So it's just frustrating at this point here, where it's like, why do I get my hopes up at this point?
It's interesting to hear you guys talking about that. And I want to throw it back to you, Devin, because you bring up Dylan Cease. I mean, he's the cornerstone of everything. I don't want to talk about blowing up anything or what. That's the guy. That's the cornerstone of everything. Whatever the future is for this organization, whether it is blowing it up or going back all in or trying to retool, what do you do with Dylan Cease? Not what the fan wants to do. What are you going to do with that piece right now? Where are you at, Devin, on that?
It's hard because I was another guy who didn't want to see Chris Sale go, but he was in the same book, except Chris Sale hated playing for the White Sox. But also another guy who's really great. And as Paul said, you really don't want Chris Sale now, although he's come back to being the Sale of old, it looks like, this season. But it's still on here. But it's kind of, I say this with Paul a lot. It's like, we need to see where this team is at come trade deadline. And if you can trade him for some prospects, because my God, this, as Paul said it best, this farm system is a joke. I think the 3 of us could start in the farm system on the White Sox because they have nothing. I haven't played baseball since I was 12. It's just, at this point, we got to see where we're going here. And I mean, this team is hot garbage come trade deadline. Get rid of Dylan Cease, get rid of, Lance Lynn, trade who you can at this point, and just let's just start over at this point. I mean, this team is going nowhere here, and I think we've all kind of realized that Jerry Reinsdorf doesn't give 2 damns about whether his team wins or lose. He doesn't even care if the ballpark is sold. This team still sells seats. I found out the Detroit Tigers have the worst attendance in all of baseball. And until the White Sox surpass that, Reinsdorf ain't going to give a sha-la-la-la-la. I am not a happy camper today.
Who are happy campers, though, Devin? All our amazing friends that could visit sheetsandgiggles.com to find natural eucalyptus mattresses for the best in-class sustainability. They've created a plant-based hybrid mattress that's eco-friendly, durable, temperature-regulating, and unlike our parents, fully supportive. There's a lot of similarities for what you want the White Sox to be that just aren't doing for White Sox fans. We have a promo code, the Sports Cubicle, Sports from the Couch, for 50% off all betting. Paulie, that's some great news. Maybe what's not going to be some great news is what might happen with Dylan Cease in this White Sox future. You heard what Dev had to say. We'll give you the final word on this. Where do you
when's his deal up? When's his team controller or rookie years up? It's got to be coming up.
Yeah, it's close. We're getting there. I think next year's like the pushing year.
So I think, like, if next year, if they obviously have to, if they value him, he might be one of the great all-time pitchers, in this era of the game. You lock him into a long-term deal, or you definitely trade him for something really good when the time is right. Either you put all your eggs in the trade deadline basket, or you get something offered to you at the winter meetings this upcoming year. But I mean, if it's me pushing buttons on behalf of the organization, I say hold on to them for as long as you can, because we don't really have a track record of getting value in return of things. We've argued that the Chris Sale, the Red Sox won that trade merely on the fact that Sale was good enough in the immediate to help them win a World Series. But ultimately, when we're talking about 2019 and beyond, yeah, you'd rather have underwhelming Yohan Moncada and underachieving Michael Kopech in exchange for oft-injured Chris Sale. But we've pointed to various examples of this organization not getting it right with their scouting. And I think Devin hit the nail on the head in his previous response, where he said that the bullpen has been very suspect, and they're just not scoring enough runs offensively. I mean, 3 runs is not going to cut it, a game. And then on top of that, there's several games where they're only scoring in 1 inning. They might have like a burst in 1 inning out of 9, which is terrible too. So if they can improve the offense organically somehow, I don't know how they're going to do it, because I think the talent is obviously there. It's just a matter of putting it together. But the good news, though, about the bullpen is right when we were about to record this, it said Liam Hendriks' cancer is in remission.
Hell
so that's a good sign, and that was where he should be right now after his last treatment. It's just a matter of getting him back on the mound and throwing strikes again. And if they can get him back this season, that only improves the bullpen, because it pushes from the back end, it pushes everyone down a roll, which is great, and you have your 9th inning guy rather than kind of piecemealing it with Kendall Graveman and Ronaldo Lopez, who weren't ideally supposed to be in that spot.
Just the idea that that's a possibility is amazing, because that means he's healthy and that he was able to beat this thing. So that's freaking great. I love to hear that. And we love to hear when good things are happening. So we'll be talking about the Cubs next week. The Marvelous One and I will be doing it, because it's a big week for the Cubs coming up. You have the Dodgers and the Padres and the Marlins and the Nationals, which means you can win if you're able to survive this upcoming homestand. You have a nice little road to gain some wins under your belt, get some much needed wins now as we get deeper into the season. So this is a team that was 1 out away from sweeping the Dodgers. This is a team that took care of business against bad teams. Isn't even playing all that great of defense. Doesn't have a lot. There's a lot to unpack for this Cubs team, but I find it a little bit more interesting what's happening with the White Sox right now. So I want to give some time to Paulie and Devin to kind of talk this out with our amazing friends and fans over here on the Sports Cubicle. And because we love them so much, don't forget to visit our amazing friends over at Sheets and Giggles. 50% off betting right now. Use the promo code Sports Cubicle, sports from the couch. For the Marvelous One, Dan Marver. For Devin Tingle. For Paul Chivari, I'm Mike Mercado.
It's just rosin.